Hi, I'm Shelley and thank you so much for joining my tutorial. This is for a short sleeved cardigan in cotton DK yarn. I'm using a 3.5mm hook to begin because it's for the rib at the bottom of the back. So we'll start by chaining 11. And then work a double crochet into the second chain from the hook, and into each chain to the end. And turn. For the second row we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to go to the miss the first stitch, go to the second stitch and double crochet into the back loop and into the back loop of each stitch to the end. And just continue double crocheting into the back loop and end with a double crochet into the chain 1. And for the second row, same as the last row, chain 1, miss the first double crochet and go into the back loop, work a double crochet into the back loop of the second stitch, and so on until you reach the end of the row, and then double crochet into the chain 1 from the previous row. Now mercerized cotton isn't quite as flexible as other types of yarn, so if you have trouble double crocheting into the chain 1, just give it a little pull out with your fingernails like that, and that will make it easier to work into. So just continue double crocheting into the back of each stitch until your work, until you've done 84 rows, and the other sizes will be on the screen. So for the next row we're going to chain 1 and we're going to work a double crochet still with a 3.5mm needle. We're going to work a double crochet into each stitch, so that should leave you with the same number of stitches that you did rows of for the border. So just continue. So you need to, the reason I'm using the 3.5 hook is because it can be a bit tricky sometimes to get into the stitches. So you're doing one where that raised bit is, and then one into the next stitch to it, and just continue doing that until you get to the end of the row. So for the next row, we're going to chain 1 with the 4mm needle this time, chain 1, and then we're going to miss 3, chain 1 and double crochet into the first space, and then we're going to miss 3, chain 3 and double crochet into the next stitch, chain 3, miss 3 and double crochet into the next stitch, chain 3, miss 3 and double crochet into the next stitch, and just continue to do that until the end of the row. And when you get to the end of the row, just do 1 double crochet into the 1 chain from the previous row. So for the next row, we're going to chain 3 and then treble into the stitch at the base of the chain, and then work 3 trebles into each 3 chain space that you created from the previous row. So 3 trebles and 3 trebles into the next space, and just continue to work 3 trebles into each 3 chain space to the end of the row. And we'll end the row with a treble into the turning chain, turn, chain 1, double crochet into the first stitch and chain 3, and then double crochet in the space between the 2 lots of trebles, chain 3 and double crochet in the space between the groups of trebles again, and chain 3, and just continue with that sequence until the end of the row. And end the row with a double crochet into the space between the 3 trebles and the starting chain from the previous row, and then double crochet into the turning chain. And then turn and chain 1, turn and chain 3, what I like, and then treble 3 into the first 3 chain space, and each 3 chain space to the end of the row, and then end the row with a treble into the 1 chain from the previous row. And that's the 2 rows that make up the pattern. So all you need to do now is continue to repeat these 2 rows until your work measures 11 inches. And then we'll shape the armholes. So now we're going to shape the armholes, and we start by slip stitching into the first 7 stitches. And then chain 3, chain 3, double crochet into the space in between the groups of trebles as before, and continue until you get to the last 6 stitches. So I've just realized that when you get to the last 6 stitches, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I thought it might be better, rather than to work a double crochet into there, which is not in the pattern, to just turn and leave 7 stitches unworked. So now we're going to chain 3 and we're going to treble 2 together into the chain space, and then treble 2 together into the next chain space. So I totally didn't do that. Yeah, treble 2 together in the next chain space. And then treble 2, and then just carry on with the pattern as normal until you get to the last 5 stitches. So we're up to the last 5 stitches, so I've trebled into the last but 1 3 chain space, and now I'm going to treble 2 together over this one and the next 3 chain space, and then I'm going to treble 2 together again. And then just treble into previous row. So for the next row, chain 1 and chain into the first stitch, chain 3 and double crochet into this first space, chain 3, so chain 1 and chain into the same space, and then double crochet 2 together, and chain 3 and double crochet into the next chain space between trebles, and work chain 3 as normal, and in between the trebles until you reach the last 3 stitches. And when you get to the end of the row, you're gonna double crochet 2 together and double crochet into the turning chain. And we're just going to do another decrease row, so this will be the 3rd one. And we're going to chain 2 together over the first stitch, treble 2 together over the first stitch and the next chain space, and then we're going to chain treble 2 together into the chain space. And then pattern to the last 5 stitches. So for the next row, we're going to excuse me, chain 3, and then we're going to, into the first 3 chain space, we're going to treble 2 together, Right, treble two together, and then treble two together over into the next 3 chain space, and then treble two into that same 3 chain space, and work to the end, to the last 5 stitches. So at the last space, treble two together into the space, and then treble two together over the space and the stitch after the and treble into the last stitch. So for the last decrease row, it's going to be as before, chain 1, work into the first 1 chain space, and then double crochet 2 together, and double crochet into the first space before the trebles, and chain 3. Continue working the pattern as normal to the last 3 stitches. So we're going to treble 2 together, and then double crochet 1. I meant double crochet 2 together, of course I did, and double crochet into the turning chain. So that's the last decrease row. Now we need to work straight until the armhole measures 8 inches. So we'll now start the right front, and we'll start by chaining 11, and double crochet into the second chain from the hook, and then each chain to the end. And for the second row, chain 1 and work into the back loop with a double crochet of the second stitch, and work into the back of every stitch until you get to the end of the row, and then finish with a double crochet into the turning chain. So that's pretty much it, and you're going to do 42 rows, just like the border for the back, but just not as many rows. So I will see you in 42 rows. Okay, so still with the 3.5mm hook, we're going to chain 1 and then work a double crochet into each stitch along the top, just as we did for the back. This yarn is quite inflexible. It's double knitting cotton and it's not stretchy at all, so this row would probably be a lot easier if you were using a different kind of yarn, but this is what we have. I'm saying this because somebody commented on my other video where I was doing a similar stitch that I was having a hard time, and they suggested my work was too tight, but I knew that it was because of the type of yarn. So just continue to work double crochets into the top of the ridge and the top of the next inner bit. So for the next row, chain 1 and double crochet into the first stitch, chain 3, miss 3 stitches and double crochet into the next one, chain 3, miss 3 stitches and double crochet into the next one, chain 3 and miss 3 stitches, double crochet into the next one, and just continue until the end of the row and finish with a double crochet into the chain 1, turn, and then chain 3 and work 3 double crochets into the first chain space, and then work 3 double crochets into the next 3 chain space, and just continue to work treble crochets, I'm always getting confused, into each 3 chain space until you get to the end, and end the row with a treble into the 1 chain. And turn, chain 1 and double crochet into the first stitch, chain 3, and then double crochet in between the groups of 3 trebles. And just continue to do that until the end of the row, and end with a double crochet into the last chain space, and then a double crochet into the turn and turn, and start the next row with chain 3, and then as before 3 trebles into each 3 chain space till the end, and finish with a treble into the chain 1 at the end. And that's the 2 rows for the pattern, and just continue until the work measures the same as the back up to the armhole, the beginning of the armhole shaping. So we're going to start the shaping. Now this is the right front, so we're going to start the shaping with the wrong side of the work facing, which means the tail is on the right hand side. Bear that in mind for when you do the left, because on the left you'll be starting on the right side of the work with the tail on the left. So for now we're going to slip stitch into the first 7 stitches, and then work in pattern to the end of the row. So for the next row, chain 3 and then work in pattern to the last 3 stitches. So I've just worked a treble into the last 3 chain space, and now I'm going to treble 2 together in that space. And then treble into the last stitch and turn. And for the next row, we're going to chain 3, treble 2 together, chain 1 and double crochet 2 together, chain 1 and double crochet 2 together, and then chain into the chain space and chain 3 and pattern to the end. So next, do one more decrease row, chain 3, and then pattern to the last 3 stitches. So we're up to the last 3 chain space, so we're gonna do 1 treble into that space and then treble 2 together. And work a treble into the 1 chain and turn. And then we're going to work 1 row straight. So we're going to work 1 more row straight because we need to decrease on the double crochet rows. So just work 1 row straight. So we're going to chain 1, double crochet into the first stitch, chain 3 and double crochet between the sets of trebles as before, and just continue to the last 3 stitches. So chain 1 and then double crochet 2 together, and then double crochet into the next stitch, and then we'll work this next row will be straight. So we'll do 5 decreases on alternate rows, and then hopefully that should be the end. So the decreases are done, but I've decided that another 2 straight rows are needed, and then you can fasten off. So to start on the sleeve, we're going to chain 9, and then double crochet into the second stitch from the hook, and then double crochet into each stitch. and then turn, chain 1 and double crochet into the back loop only of the second stitch and into each stitch to the end, and then crochet into the chain 1 from the previous row, and just continue to work rows of double crochet into the back loop until you have a total of 60 rows. So for the next row, chain 1 and work 2 double crochets into the first stitch because you're going to increase on this row, and then chain 3, miss 3 chains, double crochet into the next stitch, chain 3, miss 3 chains, double crochet into the next stitch, and just repeat that till the end of the row. So treble 1 into the last stitch, and then double crochet, and then double crochet twice into the chain 1 and turn, and then chain 3 and work 3 treble crochets into the first 3 chain space, and in the next 3 chain space, and just 3 trebles into each 3 chain space to the end of the row, and end the row with a treble into the chain 1, turn, and now we're going to increase again, so chain 1 and 2 double crochets into the first stitch, chain 3 and double crochet between the 2 groups of trebles, chain 3, double crochet between the 2 groups of trebles, and so on until the end of the row, where you'll double crochet twice into the turning chain, and after that you're going to do a straight row and followed by another increase row, and then we'll start to decrease. So now we've finished the increases, we're going to start decreasing by slip stitching into the first 7 stitches, and then just work the rest of the row to the last 6 stitches and then turn. For the next row, chain 3, treble 2 together twice, so 2 into the first 3 chain space, and then treble 2 together over 1 space and the next, and then treble 2 into the second chain space, and then work to the last 5 stitches. So we're at the last 2 3 chain spaces, so we're going to treble 2 into the first one, and then we're going to treble 2 together over this one and the next one, and then treble 2 together and then treble into the next stitch. And for the next row, we're just going to chain one, chain into the next space, and then we're going to double crochet 2 together, and then work to the last 3 stitches, and then chain one, double crochet 2 together, and double crochet into the turning chain from the previous row. And I'll just repeat those 2 rows another 3 times. So I've joined the shoulder seams together, and then we're going to take the sleeve on the wrong side, and we're going to just fold the top in half to gauge the center and thread a marker through that and into the center of the shoulder seams like that. And then I'm gonna join here, and down here, and then we're just gonna sew the sleeves into the cardigan. So the sleeves are sewn in, and all that remains to do before we do the borders for the front and neck is to sew up the sides and the bottom of the sleeve on each side, obviously. So now we've got the body of the cardigan all sewn together, we're gonna make the border. Now there are 2 ways you can do this. You can either go round, pick up and crochet some mock rib around the border, but the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to chain 9 and then start the border as for the sleeves, so first row of double crochet, and then followed by every row working a double crochet into the back loop. And I strongly suggest that as you work, you sew it on, so you know, crochet a couple of inches and sew it on so that it's very slightly stretched, and then when you get around to here, put markers where you want your buttons. If you want buttons, you don't necessarily have to put buttons on, and then you can see where you need to put the buttonholes, but I'll come back and go through that. So as you can see, I've sewn the border in place. This is the wrong way out right now, so I've marked where the buttonholes are going to go on the other side, and so when you're working back down this way, you're gonna chain 1, work into the back loop of the first 3 stitches, chain 2, miss 2, and then work to the end for each buttonhole row, and then your work will be finished.